Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of Doing Justice Brings Joy. We are going to do an analysis of the Durham City proposed budget. And so I want you to imagine a woman gets up and rides Route 9 bus every single morning. I want you to imagine that she's up before 5. She puts her uniform on. Her uniform, the kind that smells like other people's food because she works the breakfast shift. And she walks 3 blocks to the stop on Dearborn Drive. She doesn't have a car. She never has. And she's not waiting for one. She's waiting for Durham to show up for her in the way she shows up for this city every day. Her name doesn't matter right now. What matters is that she's real. That there are hundreds of people who ride Route 9 every day, whose livelihoods and lives depend upon the decisions that are made about the budget. And what the city of Durham decides to do with its budget this year will either honor their lives or make them harder. She's one of thousands that are dependent on our public transportation system. She's the grandmother on Route 4 carrying groceries from the dollar store because the nearest full-service grocery store is a couple of miles away. The teenager in East Durham trying to get his first job interview, checking the schedule on his screened phone, praying the bus comes on time because the route is every hour route. The young woman, 19 years old, who aged out of foster care 6 months ago and has been sleeping on people's couches ever since, or worse. This is Durham, our Durham. And right now, the city is writing a budget, the FY27 budget, that will decide what kind of Durham we are going to be. Again, I want to welcome you to Doing Justice Brings Joy. I'm Stella Adams, and if you've been here before, you know we don't do surface. We go deep, we go real, we go prophetic when we have to, and today we have to. Today we are reading Durham's FY27 budget like the moral document that it is, because a budget is not just numbers on a page, it's a confession, it's a declaration. It tells you in cold hard dollars and cents what a city loves, what it protects, who it sees, and who it's willing to leave behind. We're going to talk about transit, contaminated parks, young people without homes, deeply affordable housing, and the historic heart of Black Durham, Hayti. So stay with me, get you some tea, because this one matters. This is what the number says about who we are. We got 57 million set forth in the total transit budget. That's their full operational allocation for Go Durham. There is a 8.2 million funding gap that's threatening critical service expansions across the city. Our city has 43,000 residents without access to a car. These are our neighbors and our friends who are dependent on Go Durham for survival. 1 in 5 children in Durham lives in poverty. Are we okay with that? The young lives that we're talking about are shaped by every decision we make about this budget. When I talk about the transit, I want you to imagine some things. I want you to imagine that Route 9 and Route 4, this is not imagination, this is real. They run through neighborhoods of the families who built this city. These are the neighborhoods, the black neighborhoods, the old working class neighborhoods of the grandmothers who cleaned the houses of wealthy Durham residents, the men who worked in tobacco factories and textile mills, their children and their grandchildren. These buses are their lifeline. It's not a convenience, it's a lifeline. These bus communities have been historically redlined, disinvested, and pushed to the margins of every policy conversation. Yet these are the thread that connects working people to work, to school, to doctor's appointments, to life. I want you to picture Miss Dorothy. She's in her 70s. She has a bad knee. She takes the bus to her dialysis appointment 3 times a week. She has no other way to get there. When the bus doesn't come, when the service gets cut, she doesn't get to call Lyft. She misses her appointment. This is not an inconvenience. This is a medical crisis. That this is a life in the balance. So again, we're going to go through these numbers again because I don't want you to miss them. The Durham transit budget is $57 million. Of that, $38 million goes to Go Durham, our local bus service, the one that Miss Dorothy rides, the one that the night shift worker at Duke Hospital takes at 11 p.m., the one that the teenager from East Durham boards to get his first job. But there's an $8.2 million funding gap. $8.2 million standing between service expansions the community needs and cuts that would fall hardest on the people who can least afford it. And let me be clear about what that is at stake. Fare free, go Durham. We fought hard for that because when you make the bus free, you remove one or more of the barriers between a low income person and their ability to move through their day in dignity. This is not a luxury. I said at city council meeting in March, the budget is more than just a spreadsheet. It's a moral document. It's a moral document. A moral document that cuts bus service to Black and low income communities while building parking decks downtown. That's not just a policy failure, that's an environmental racism. That's racialized austerity, wearing a suit and sitting in a council chamber. I'm frustrated today because there's so much going on with this budget that I want to talk to you about and what the shortfall threat means. Transit cuts don't happen in a vacuum. When people can't get to work, they lose jobs. When they lose jobs, they lose housing. When they lose housing, we see the crisis in our shelters and on the streets. And then we spend more trying to patch what we broke. Cutting transit to save money is one of the most expensive things this city can do. So here's my challenge to you as a listener. Do you know which route your neighbors ride? Do you know what it would mean for her if that route was cut? Find out, then show up, and we'll talk about how to end this episode at the end of this episode, okay? Think about it. If you spend the money, the $8 million, to increase service on these routes, you increase opportunity for people to work, to get jobs, to be able to keep their jobs. This is going to be incredibly important in the next year because access to housing, access to SNAP, access to any Medicaid is all going to be contingent on people working. And if people can't get to work on time because the buses aren't running on time because there is no bus route that got cut in the communities that need it the most, it's unconscionable. It's unconscionable. You're eating your seed corn. All the training that has gone into getting people job ready. If we get them job ready, but they can't get to the job, what's the point? What's the point? Fare-free Durham saw ridership surge 20% following fare elimination, with low-income riders and youth recording the greatest gains in access, frequency of use, and economic mobility. This made fare-free, this is the good news, right? We are still fare-free. We want to keep it fare-free because that is so important and so meaningful. It has created job opportunities. It has given a lifeline to those gasping for breath. It has allowed our seniors to get to their appointments. I was impressed by an activist who was going to a rally, and the activist was visually impaired, and he was able to say, "Don't worry about me. I have transportation. I'll just ride the bus," because he knew his bus routes and he knew how to get to where he needed to get to because he had access to fare-free transit. And he enjoyed his independence. Our communities are under siege at every turn, and it is a moral imperative that our city take responsibility. I want you to imagine something for me. You take your children to the park on Saturday morning. It's warm, the grass is green, the kids are laughing. Your little one picks up something from the ground, a stick, a handful of dirt. You know how kids are, and puts it near their mouth the way kids do. And you don't think anything of it because it's a park and it's supposed to be safe. That's the problem. Now imagine that you find out, not from the city, not from a letter, not from a multilingual flyer in your mailbox. You find out from a neighbor who heard from somebody else that the soil in the park has been contaminated. Heavy metals, toxic legacy pollutants, the kind of thing that doesn't wash off your children's hand, the kind of thing that accumulates, the kind of thing that hurts quietly over the years. What do you feel? You feel anger? You feel grief? You feel betrayed? And then you feel something darker, more sinister. You think about every other Saturday, every time your child played in that dirt, and you wonder, did anyone know? And if they did know, why didn't they tell me? This is not hypothetical. This is a reality for families in Black and low income neighborhoods across Durham, where contaminated sites, the legacy of industrial use, of highways built through communities, of decades of environmental neglect, sit in plain sight in our parks, near our schools, and the remediation, delayed, underfunded, and the community notification, while it has really, really improved, in the last year and a half. It was inconsistent at best and non existent at worst. I want to talk to you a minute about why this is so important to me. I know you all say, Stella, you always jumping around, but I'm from Durham. I was raised in Durham. So there's no aspect of Durham that doesn't impact me. But this particular issue impacts me because one of the contaminated parks is a contaminated park I grew up in, playing in. I grew up having picnics with my family. I grew up taking my children to this park. And I have blood cancer. I have multiple myeloma. Did I get it from playing in the park? I don't know. Did it environmentally impact me and my family members? I don't know. But I know this. When we asked to have it put in the parking rec bond, they said they weren't going to do it. They were going to cover it in the general fund. Now, they're backing off of that. And every year that the city doesn't clean those parks are not safe for our children and our communities. Our children have no safe outlets for play. This budget must include dedicated remediation funding with public timelines, not vague commitments, but actual dates. It must require multilingual community notification, because a flyer that only comes in English is not a notification for a Spanish-speaking family. It is an afterthought. And it must acknowledge what every environmental justice scholar and every mother in East Durham already knows. The burden of contamination does not fall randomly. It falls on the Black community, on poor communities, every damn time. This is not an accident, it's a pattern. You can look at the redlining pattern. You can look at where they put the contaminated soil, the radiated soil, the lead-based soil. And these patterns are choices. And the choices have always been our neighborhoods. You cannot call yourself a city that loves its children while knowingly poisoning their playgrounds and knowing that won't fix it, won't remediate it. This is a moment to prove that love is more than a slogan. Fund the remediation, set a timeline, tell the people, all the people now what you're going to do. Now, I understand that you're waiting on information from the state, but you can put some money on the table as a minimum amount that you're committing to do in FY27. Multiple parks, disproportionately in communities of color, carried the documented contamination from decades of industrial legacy use. And the harm is still going on. And Where are the alternative? Have you partnered? Whereas remediation is more than community meetings and updates. We need some actual remediation done. And we need community notification in multiple languages, restorative investment in the park infrastructure, starting with the neighborhoods most harmed. Our young people, there's some gaps. There's some gaps in our community. We have one of the highest homeless rates for children who, and yes, they're children. They've aged out of foster care. We have so many children that are experiencing homelessness on any given night. Foster care graduates, LGBTQ youth, young adults displaced by rising rents, college students. When my daughter was in college, she had a friend. They had to go fishing and catch fish in our ponds to have food to eat. I'm not making this up. Contemporaries, classmates of our current mayor, Leo Williams, were sleeping in cars and fishing in local ponds to have meat to eat. Now, you know, I didn't let that sit, but that was their situation. I want you to imagine a young man. He just turned 19 in November. The day after his birthday, the state of North Carolina says, you're on your own now. He has $75 in his pocket. And as you know, with foster kids, most of them have a trash bag with everything they own. They don't even have suitcases. Give your old suitcases that are still in decent condition to Social Department of Social Services, so our children don't have to get transferred to a home with their belongings in a trash bag. That's just something practical you can do. He had a phone with a cracked screen. He has no one with a couch, a spare room, a driveway, no one whose door was open to him. He aged out of foster care. That's the clinical phrase. What it means in human terms is that the system that was supposed to take care of him stopped caring by statute. At the stroke of midnight on his 19th birthday, and now he is 19 years old in Durham, and he's homeless. And he's a senior in high school, struggling to get to school every day. And most people driving past him on the street have no idea, because youth homelessness is invisible in a way that older adult homelessness is not. These young people are sleeping on friends' couches, in cars, in storage units, in places that don't show up in a shelter count. They are hidden. They are surviving, but barely. And too many of them are taken advantage of by human traffickers. Because and forced to survive in ways we cannot imagine. I'm not going to talk about the social service system this episode, but we're going to do an episode on the social service system and how it rips families apart rather than try to mend them. And then leaves the children at the stroke of midnight when they turn 19 to homelessness. I want you to see this young man not as a statistic, but as a son. He's one of our young people. And what that means in policy language is this: youth specific shelter beds, not mixed with adult populations, because that is not safe for an 18, 19-year-old. Rapid rehousing funds targeted specifically to ages 18 to 24. Trauma-informed street outreach that meets young people where they are, with the housing first philosophy baked into every program we fund rather than a containment and jailing approach. Youth violence and youth crime have a relationship to youth homelessness and the carelessness that we treat these young people. Housing first, not sobriety first, not employment first, not compliance first, home first, because we cannot heal what we cannot house. And I want to speak plainly about the most vulnerable in this population, especially now. LGBTQ youth who are disproportionately pushed out of family homes and faith communities, sometimes by the very institutions that were supposed to love them unconditionally. And we as people of faith need to reckon with that. Jesus said, whatever you do to the least of these, you do to me. And the least of these is a 19-year-old with a trash bag and $75 and nowhere to sleep. What does the city do? And what this city does or does not do in its budget will answer that question. I want Durham's answer to be, you belong here. We will not let you fall. You are safe here. You are seen here. You matter here. We have a deeply affordable housing gap, and that's for people who are below 30% of the area median. I want you to imagine a woman who works at the hospital. She's not a doctor or a nurse, although some nurses might fall into this category. She cleans the rooms where sick people heal. She does that job with pride. She does it well. She does it at 6 in the morning and sometimes again in the evening because she picked up a second shift at a grocery store. 2 jobs, 6 days a week. And she still cannot afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Durham without spending more than half her income on rent. I want you to hold 2 jobs, more than half her income on rent. That is not a personal failure. That is a policy failure. That is what happens when a city allows the market to make all the decisions about who deserves to live here in Durham. Durham rents have increased more than 45% since 2019. 45%. Meanwhile, wages for the lowest paid workers in the city have not come close to keeping pace. The result is a catastrophic shortfall of units that are actually affordable to people earning 30% of area median income and below. The people who clean our hospitals, drive our buses, serve our food, raise our children while we work, these are not abstract economic categories. These are our neighbors, hardworking neighbors. The market will not solve this. I need to say that clearly because I hear a lot of people saying, and these are well-meaning people and well-meaning public officials who think that if we just build enough market rate housing that the prices will eventually come down. That is not how unaffordable markets work. The market builds for profit. Profit is not found. That I understand, and I need you to understand that profit is not found at 30% of AMI. Profit is not found where housekeepers live. Only public investment, intentional, sustained, and structural, will close the gap. So what does the FY27 budget need to say? It needs to say dedicated funds for housing at 60% of area median income and below, with a significant portion carved out for 30% and below. It needs to say anti-displacement protections for long-term residents who have survived decades of intentional disinvestment and are now being pushed out by the very investment we fought to bring there. And it needs to say community land trust. Community land trust. That's a structural solution that takes land off speculative market permanently, so that affordable housing we build today stays affordable 30 years from now. We have one of the best land trusts in the nation in Durham. We need to start donating land to them and working with them. Mark, I see you're in the house. You want to join the conversation about this budget?
What we say about the budget?
Right now, I've been talking about transit. I've done an analysis of this entire budget, and I'm saying what's been, and I'm about to get to Hayti, so you're coming in right at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm talking about the housing situation, the homelessness situation, especially. And Mark, I don't know, maybe you see this group because you work in the arts area.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a hidden population of about 1,300 youth homelessness people from 18 to 24. that many of the children that are in foster care, seniors in high school trying to transition into college, the minute they turn 19, they get put out on the streets.
Right.
And we also, because this is a college town per se, we have so many students at Central that can't afford apartments, and there's not enough dorm space on campus. And we have, many of them are couch hopping.
Mhm.
And I know we did a little of that when we went to school, but now it's a chronic condition. It's not just staying on the couch a couple of weeks till you get a new apartment. It's a kind of permanent couch to couch situation. And we really need to be thinking about how the city should be dedicating funds, how Hayti and North Carolina Central need to be thinking about how they can be building more affordable at the 30%, 60% of median income, because there are just too many people. There are too many people we know that are working 2 and 3 jobs that can't afford a 2-bedroom apartment in Durham no more.
And it is very population that looks at their children with the homeless is crazy, and that's national. Everything like that. Children with the homeless and everything like that. Like they say, over 200,000 children in the U.S. are part of homeless families with child homelessness posing serious risk to health, education, long-term development. There's like 259,000 individuals experiencing homelessness, and that's going to be the percentage of the people on adults that's going to find a child represents about 1/3 of the total homeless population in the United States. So there's a lot of homeless people, and that's just national, not just here, just solely in this part of the country. Yeah, I remember people
Your,
that just,
your mic is coming in and out.
oh, hold on a second.
Yeah,
What were you saying?
Your mic was coming in and out. So
Yeah. Hope you can hear me now. But yeah, that's
yeah, I
a
can
major,
hear you now.
it's a major issue and everything like that. So there's no doubt about that. They're even talking about how big of an issue it is with a lot of the population and everything like that. Yes, because I've heard that 1/3 of the homeless population is children and everything like that. Yes, I do remember couch surfing. I've had some people surf on my couches and everything in the different apartments that I've lived in. But yes, it has become more of an epidemic. And just around the corner from Duke, you're talking about Central. I don't know if there are any encampments near Central, but I know there are encampments of homeless that are near Duke. Some of them are right near some eating establishments and everything like that. So I'm sometimes shocked when I see these encampments, but they are right there in the midst of the campuses, and they're not always older people. There are some people that are definitely in their 40s and 50s, and maybe even some in their 20s and 30s that are having a hard time, so they are living in these encampments.
Yeah, I know. I've seen them. Not necessarily. I've seen them near Hayti. I haven't
Yes,
seen them near.
yes, they're definitely encampments. I mean, the old Walgreens is a primary one, so the old
Mhm,
that's a
mhm.
place that people have camped out for sure. And I'm sure people are finding ways to get in that fenced area that a lot of people were fighting for and everything like that. But I'm seeing signs that there might be people that are finding ways to get in there, even though it's fenced in and it's supposed to be not able to be gotten in. But I'm sure that if you got a way, there's a will.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Since our last show,
Hmm.
they did the groundbreaking at
I was
the Hayti. Um, what is the area called?
Hayti Villages. I was there.
Yeah. Um, I was in Asheville, so I missed the ceremony, but I understand it was very hopeful.
It was.
Share with the folks what happened
Well,
that
it
you
was
can recall.
yeah, it was a great event. Shirley Caesar was there. One of the streets near the villages is actually Shirley Caesar Circle. So she was there. The mayor was there. A number of other people were there. So it was very hopeful. And Montague sounds like he's going to do a lot of development that'll be very promising and everything like that. So I'm hoping to get him on a couple of shows in the near future. I've been talking to him and everything like that. But yeah, it looks like there's even talk of a grocery store that might be becoming a black grocery store at that and everything like that. I think they might be out
Oh,
of
wow.
Oklahoma. So there's a talk of a lot of positive developments. It's supposed to be multiple hundreds of units and everything like that. And we were given a not so much an award, but like a kind of a symbol that talks about our involvement on some of those planning meetings and everything like that. So it's actually at the window of the center right now and everything like that. But yeah, it's definitely was a great award and everything like that. As a matter of fact, I'll bring it out just temporarily, but this is it that we got and everything along those lines. So as you can see, it's honoring Hayti and Hayti's involvement.
Well, congratulations for your involvement in this. What I hope will be a historic undertaking that will benefit. And this is the thing, benefit the people of Durham
Right.
that have been displaced from this neighborhood for 10 years.
Oh yeah, totally.
Revitalize and bring that neighborhood back.
And that's what everybody that spoke said that they would like to see it be a revitalized neighborhood and something that could speak to what the neighborhood used to be and give it that kind of feel that it used to have back in the day. So that's what everybody was talking about with this urge to make it a more prominent neighborhood, much in the way that it was when it was one of the many Black Wall Streets.
Yeah, because I've been reading some historical documents, and the presence of Durham and prominence of Hayti and prominence of that area of Fayetteville Street corridor is documented by
Mm-hmm.
W.E.B. Du Bois, by Booker T. Washington, by Eleanor
Mm-hmm.
Roosevelt. I was looking at a documentary on the Duke family
Mm-hmm.
and all their donations and commitment to Lincoln Hospital and to
Okay.
Hayti,
Mm-hmm.
to St. Joseph's,
Mm-hmm.
and how proud they were. I mean, it's included as their major contributions, just like Duke University is a major contribution. There is so much history um, in that area that is just that I want to see rebuilt and redone. You
Yeah,
know.
and that was one of the roles that I had even on that committee was they wanted to make sure that the because Brian Dawson provided some music and everything like that, but they wanted to make sure that the music was representative of our influence. So I mean, while he was playing some contemporary hits and everything like that, that we did make sure that he also put in some of the music of some of the people that have been impactful in the Hayti area, whether that was the Drifters, whether that was Modulation, or whether that was definitely Sam Cooke with the song that he made famous, where he was actually connected with North Carolina Central University students and everything like that. Change is going to come and everything like along those lines, and definitely included some other things. I think we also mentioned Pigmeat Market and some other things in that space, but we wanted to make sure that the playlist was had some impact of some of those people that have come through these great streets and everything along those lines. Because there's been quite a few of them. I just named a few, but there have been many others as well. And like I said, Shirley's definitely part of that. John D. Homer was part of that. So there's been a number of folks that we want to make sure that they were incorporated, including some modern folks like Nina Freelon and Lois Deloach and Eve Cornelius and others. But we want to make sure that they were putting the music in the playlist that was reflective of our community.
Yeah, we had Donald Byrd and
Mm-hmm.
the and NCCU band. I
Right.
mean, they had a number one hit.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yep.
and so music has always been part of our community and culture,
And
and it's
we just had a major event that took place this last weekend that people forget its role and tied to Central and Central students, and that was of course the Bembe, which was founded by Bert St. John's and a number of students, including some of the
Wayne
P
P.
brothers and everything like
Yeah,
that. When it was at Old Hillside, and then went to Central and the Library Bowl, which many people remember that period.
yeah. Wayne P. He was
Mm-hmm.
He was part of those kids.
Yes.
They were a couple of years behind me, but I remember the work that they did on that. Mark had to drop off for a second, but I'm sure he'll be back. But we were reminiscing about um, Durham, Black Durham. I was looking at something about Black Wall Street in Tulsa, but we also have one of the longest surviving Black Wall Streets right here in Durham. With we still have um, Black-owned bank, mechanics, and farmers. We had Black-owned insurance companies. We still have a couple of Black pharmacies still. Our theaters are gone. We have plenty of restaurants, law offices, doctors' offices, Lincoln Hospital. It was a thriving, self-sufficient, beautiful community built by Black people in the Hayti area. Um, who had been and in Bragtown and many of our historic many of our historic Black neighborhoods were built by Black people who survived enslavement, who survived Jim Crow, and refused to be denied their full humanity. When people see people from Durham, people who grew up in Durham have different attitude from other Black people I've run across because um, we are, whether you are poor, it doesn't matter. You know your full humanity in Durham. You know that you can speak up at a city council meeting and not be afraid. Um, and the Hayti community was proof. It was living, breathing economic proof that Black people, given a chance, can do extraordinary things. And when the city decided to build a highway and urban renewal, they called it, which was a cruel euphemism, they tore through Hayti, tore it up, and built it. And 147 was built to replace it. It didn't just happen in Durham at 147, it also happened in Houston, where they split the third ward and cut the fifth ward off from the rest of the town. They completely destroyed the Chinatown um, in the highways, building highways. They did the same thing in Los Angeles. They did the same thing in New Orleans. All the major highways were built by tearing down the existing Black business and economic engines of these communities. And we fought in Durham and to try to protect Southside neighborhood and Hayti and other areas. And I'm telling you this history because it's not just the past. The budget that we're talking about also should include decisions about the Federal Street corridor, which is the heart of Hayti. And the city recently voted 5-2 to amend their contract with Hayti Promise CDC. The people of Hayti, the entire neighborhood of Hayti, the promise of Hayti is we want to see our community restored and repaired, not gentrified.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because I just learned something interesting myself that I had forgotten, and you'll get a kick out of this, Stella. But the properties that are behind us at that time used to be owned by Ron Roadfox, who is a major construction person, and his daughter is running the company out of Atlanta and everything like that. They sold that property and is now owned by Denton, I think it is, and everything like that. But they owned it up until I think 2018, 2017. I think he passed in 2014 and everything like that. But they owned it for a number of years. It's like 19 units behind us and everything like that. But he was the owner of that, and Mom had reminded me of that because, of course, she was a longtime friend of his and everything like that. But yeah, I forgot that was actually, and which is why it's called Foxgate, and it still has that name and everything like that. But yeah, they have been sold that property, even though I understand she's doing quite well. Joy is as a developer in Atlanta. She was actually featured, I think, last week in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution because she was talking about how difficult it is for a woman to be in those kind of positions.
It really is difficult. And so they're participating in this process?
I don't know if they're participating in this process, but there'll be some other processes that'll be going on. I know that they are doing a lot of similar work in Atlanta, and he was involved in that work here when he lived here. And I understand they have offices still in the Triangle. So I do understand they still have some offices, and I know some of the engineers and estimators and other people are still here in the area and everything like that. So I'm sure there are some people that are connected with him that are still involved, even if he's not involved or the organization is not involved.
That's good to know. That's good to know. Because we want to make sure that Hayti and the Federal Street corridor, because we grew up on that. We grew up in this neighborhood. I grew up on Dunbar. I have lived in every neighborhood at some point. My mom was like a nomad.
Yeah.
I have lived in every neighborhood in Durham.
Well, I don't know about every neighborhood, but I've done quite a few myself because I know I used to work at Organon Technico, which is over there in one of our neighborhoods. I think that's near Oxford Commons and everything like that. And of course, I've lived in off of Broad Street in the Oaks apartments and everything like that, which isn't that far from the Juvenile Center. Of course, I lived at Central and everything like that. And I've lived downtown, and now I'm living over here by Duke. So yeah, I don't know about every neighborhood, but I've definitely been in quite a few, at least 5 or 6 of them and everything like that. So I've
it may not be every neighborhood, but it's been a lot. It's been a lot.
Same for me, because I know I lived in 2 downtown neighborhoods, because I lived in downtown proper when I lived in the loft apartments, and then I lived at West Village at one point as well. So definitely have been in a number of these downtown properties, because I remember when West Village, we're in the middle of basketball playoffs, and I remember when West Village was being formed by some of these basketball greats like Grant Hills and Christian Laettner and what was it, Tom Neiman, I believe it was, because Tom Neiman was the one that gave me the hookup and for a discount and everything like that. So yeah, I definitely have a great deal of respect for those folks that are trying to be part of the legacy of development that has gone on. I just have a quick question for you, because I know you're wrapping up. What's with these long meetings? What's with these long meetings? Because I'm hearing that these meetings have been ridiculously long at City Hall.
It's because they're grappling with a lot of things. You've got the state and the federal government pushing more things down on the cities. And so the cities are like, I ain't mad at the city, but I'm asking them to redo their thing. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of pressure on the community because the needs of the street level community people are not being met.
Gotcha.
They're being talked at, but they're not being addressed. Okay. And so everything is being done at we want it to look pretty level rather than fixing the problem. Okay, sweep it in the closet, close the door, rather than do the deep clean, the deep dive. And so you have people demanding it, you know what I'm saying? Demanding that things get better because they don't know how are you supposed to survive, right? When you can't even afford gas. Me and TC filled up the gas tank, it was $75.
Wow.
If you're making $7.25 an hour, that's a 10-hour day just to get gas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is getting crazy. That's for sure.
So there's a lot and always this time of year, you have a convergence of they got to pass a budget. The budget has to be passed by June 30th. So I think they're going to hold a public hearing June 1st, and then they'll pass the budget.
Speaking of the budget, have you heard anything about the buses? Because June 30th is around the corner, and I've been going free for a number of years, and I know there are people that are still trying to.
They still have fare-free buses. That's the one good thing. They still have fare-free buses. But
so that's going to go through 2027?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So fare-free buses are going to go through 2027. And but Bragtown is not going to get its expansion. So people, it is almost time for me to let you go. But I do want to run through. We talked about, Mark and I have been talking about this slide, so I won't spend a whole lot of time here. But I do want to get to our demands for this budget before we close. So we want to protect fare-free Durham, the zero service cuts to Route 9 and Route 4. They're the lifeline for our communities, and we must have them. Even Mark talked about and asked about it. We got to fund the contaminated park remediation now with a public timeline and community accountability. We need to make sure that it is at least $5 million set aside for that in 2027. We need to invest in youth-specific homelessness response with dedicated shelter beds, rapid rehousing, and trauma-informed outreach. We need to partner with the public schools to address homelessness facing our children. We need to create deeply affordable housing at 60% and below AMI. 80% and below will be addressed by the Community Reinvestment Act market. We need the city to concentrate on 60% AMI and below with a percentage set aside for 30% and below AMI, and with anti-displacement guarantees also put in place. And we need to repair Hayti, fund the Federal Street Corridor stabilization, and hold the line against gentrification as much as we can. That's our historic legacy. We're moving in the right direction, but we have to have a firm commitment to repair, not replace, the people in those communities. Finally, what we know is that a budget that harms the least of these is not a balanced budget. It is a broken covenant. Transit, housing, parks, and youth are not silos. They are the same body. If we don't have transit to get to jobs, we can't afford housing. If we don't have housing, we can't get to, we're endangering our children without recreation and parks that are safe. Our children don't have a place to go. Equity should not be a line item in the budget, and it is, right? It should not just be a line item in the budget. It should be the lens that's applied to every line of the budget. It is the lens that should be applied to every line of the budget. Durham's historically Black communities are owed repair, not in restoration, not just recognition. Durham's historically Black communities are not just historically Black, they're historically significant. Bragtown was built by the enslaved, from the freedmen of Stagville Plantation. They put their foot in the ground and they bought their homes and they made a community in Bragtown. Fayetteville Street Corridor, Lincoln Hospital. These are historically significant areas. Hayti, Black Wall Street. Our Black Wall Street was not bombed in 1921. It was bulldozed in 1961. We need change. We need a change in the budget perspective. So what I'm asking you to do is to show up, speak up, and stay in the room. Go to the Durham City Council budget hearings in June. Write and contact your city council members. It's city council only at durhamnc.gov. That's city council only at durhamnc.gov. The issues in the budget that you care about, you need to speak, write them, send them an email, let them know what you're concerned about in this budget, what your neighborhood concerns are about. These are my concerns. These are ones I lifted up, but there's so many more I could have lifted up. I could have lifted up that we need to make sure that the HOPWA funding, that it's not just that you fund these things, but that you allocate the funds. We need to make sure one of the most effective ways to prevent homelessness is eviction intervention. So money should not be cut from the eviction program, prevention program, because that program keeps more people in housing, and that we want to nip problems in the bud. We don't want them to escalate. I need you to come to city council budget hearings. Bring your church, your block association. Show up and speak up, because the budget is decided in that room. Sign up a community, call their office, your city council members, email them. There's the email right there. What are you doing about the transit gap? Are you going to treat these contaminated parks? Are you committed to creating deeply affordable housing? And are you committed to maintaining and retaining our historically Black districts like Hayti, Merrittmore, and Bragtown? Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for caring enough to listen. Thank you for being a kind of person who wants to do something, not just know something. Doing justice, truly doing it, showing up for it, sacrificing for it, celebrating every inch of it. brings joy. I'll see you in the work. God bless.